नमस्कार दोस्तों और जय हिंद। आप सभी को स्वागत है इन माय चैनल 1971 वॉर बुक सीरीज। तो दोस्तों, आज हम एक बहुत ही सीनियर एयर कॉमोडोर के साथ बात करेंगे एंड हिज पॉपुलैरिटी इज नॉट ओनली दैट ही सर्व्ड इन द एडमिनिस्ट्रेटिव ब्रांच ऑफ द इंडियन एयरफोर्स, बट he is one of the very few old-timer paratrooper jump instructors of the Indian Armed Forces from the Indian Air Force side. Initial members, if not the founding members of the Paratrooper Training School, Agra. Paratrooper Training School normally trains young paratroopers in how to perform their first jumps from aircrafts. Even if you join the Indian Army today, you have to go to Paratrooper Training School, Agra, if you decide to do a para course and become a paratrooper. Even if you join the Territorial Army, you have to go through this exact same process in the Paratrooper Training School. It had initially been started by the British, but after the independence of India, the Paratrooper Training School at Agra had immensely contributed in the conversion of many infantry battalions of the Indian Army to be converted into parachute regiments. और आज का वो parachute regiments उनमें से बहुत सारे आज para SF units बन गए हैं with extensive training of course. लेकिन the foundation of these para courses and paratrooper training institutes has been the Paratrooper Training School at Agra. तो 1971 के बांग्लादेश लिबरेशन वॉर में जो पैरा ड्रॉप हुआ था एट टंगेल, स्पेशली जहां पे 2 पैरा वाज ड्रॉप्ड बाय एयरक्राफ्ट्स ऑफ द इंडियन एयरफोर्स, वहां पे इन पैराट्रूपर्स का ट्रेनिंग बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट था टू मेक दोज जंप्स, स्टैटिक लाइन जंप्स एट हाइट्स ऑफ 1250 फीट। ये सब ट्रेनिंग होता था एट पैराट्रूपर ट्रेनिंग स्कूल आगरा। Today I have invited Air Commodore Minoo Vania, who had served as squadron leader in the 1971 war in the planning of this entire Tangel para drop, alongside working with the Eastern Command, including training the paratroopers of the 2 para to take part in this airborne operation. Since 1958, I would say, Air Commodore Minoo Vania had been training paratroopers as part of the Indian Air Force, and by 1972 itself he had completed more than 500 jumps. आप सोचिए उसके बाद का करियर के बारे में मैं तो बात अभी तक कर ही नहीं रहा हूँ। एयर कमोडोर मीनू वानिया ने जो कंट्रीब्यूशन किया है in raising the initial paratrooper units of the Indian Armed Forces, that has been immense. He had been involved in rescuing a paratrooper in a hang-up case, जिसके लिए उनको शौर्य चक्र से भी सम्मानित किया गया है from the Indian Air Force. तो आज हम Part 1 of this video regarding Air Commodore Minoo Vania हम जानेंगे how he had joined the Paratrooper Training School, what was his job as a Parajump Instructor in preparing these paratroopers for these jumps, and how he received the Shaurya Chakra for this rescue of a young paratrooper. So let's welcome Air Commodore Minoo Vania, Shaurya Chakra, Vayu Sena Medal to our program today. So welcome, sir, to our conference call today regarding your contributions as a paratrooper training instructor in the 1971 war. So at first I would like to have a brief discussion about your life before joining the Indian Air Force. If you could talk about that part, sir.
Okay, I'll keep everything very brief, Debu. So I'll start by telling you I was born to Zoroastrian parents.
Okay.
Parsi.
Achha.
Parsi parents. We were in Delhi. I was born in August 1935.
Okay.
I schooled and colleged at Delhi itself. And did my graduation in English Honours from Hindu College, Delhi University. I joined the NA previous after I finished graduation.
This was in
and English Honours.
English Honours, okay.
It was the easiest subject. because if you, I was also into NCC, I was into sports and games. I represented the university in football and athletics. So
Acha.
that was more important.
Acha.
Besides, of course, the young ladies of the college.
Acha, acha.
So with that,
Mm-hmm.
there was no time, to really study as such. But yes, I did manage to clear my honors degree.
Okay.
And like everybody else, I had gone to um Kolkata
Acha,
to
acha.
look for a job.
Acha.
Because at that time of when we were young at that age,
Mm-hmm.
everyone went there because all the big British companies were in Calcutta.
Okay.
And I was even offered a job in Indian Carbon. There is the one which at Lucknow they were opening a factory.
Mm-hmm.
So they had said that if you wish, you can join sometime in April or May or something like that.
Okay.
So when I got home, my mother was reading a newspaper
Mm-hmm.
and she said, I was thinking about you.
Mm-hmm.
And I, like a chap normal, said all mothers will think of their sons when they are not there.
Mm-hmm.
And in any case, she said, no, I was reading the newspaper. There was an advertisement from the Indian Air Force.
Acha, acha, acha.
It said, join the Indian Air Force in the administrative branch.
Acha. This was in which
And
year, sir?
the 1957.
1957. Okay.
Yeah. So she said that, look, I was reading the paper. It said, join the Air Force.
Mm-hmm.
You always wanted to do these funny things of doing something or the other.
Mm-hmm.
So, and they said that preference would be given. Basic was you have to be BA honors,
Acha.
any subject.
Mm-hmm.
Then preference would be given to candidates who were in NCC
Mm-hmm.
and had represented the university in various games.
Okay.
So she says that I thought this job is tailor made for you.
Mm-hmm.
That's how I thought of you.
Mm-hmm.
Because I had two university colors. I was NCC under officer and I was BA honors in literature.
Okay.
Anyway, to cut a long story short,
Mm-hmm.
I went to college the next day
Mm-hmm.
and there was a friend of mine was also in the college, but he was a hostler.
Acha, acha.
His name was Ghanshyam Singh Rathore.
Mm-hmm.
So I told him कि ऐसा ऐसा हुआ है, and should we apply? He said, why not?
Mm-hmm.
We'll have because he was history honors.
Mm-hmm.
He had represented the university in athletics. He was not NCC, but he was a good chap.
Acha, acha.
So we, both of us applied. Both of us were called to Dehradun,
Mm-hmm.
a selection board. Both of us got selected.
Mm-hmm.
We came back to Delhi.
Mm-hmm.
Both of us cleared our medical.
Mm-hmm.
And then it was a question of the merit list.
Okay.
So Ghanshyam told me, he said, यार अब क्या करें? ये तो बोल रहा है कि यहाँ तक पहुँच गए हैं.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, when the merit list came, both of us also were qualified,
Mm-hmm.
be qualified. Then I asked him कि short service commission because the offer was not for permanent. It was for short service commission, 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
So I said 3 साल की बात है यार, चलते हैं, देखते हैं and all that. And both of us landed up at Coimbatore to do the course.
Acha.
We both finished the course, and somehow or the other, the posting signal when it came on completion of 1 year in 1958,
Mm-hmm.
June, I think, no, some March or April sometime, we got our commission on 1st of June 58.
Acha, acha. 1958. Okay.
Yeah, it was a 1 year course.
Mm-hmm.
So, whilst, that somehow the posting signal got distorted somewhere in transmission,
Mm-hmm.
and I had passed out first in order of merit.
Mm-hmm.
I landed up in a place where I was not supposed to go, and everyone followed suit thereafter.
Acha.
So there were 28 of us, accounts and admin course,
Mm-hmm.
and all landed up at the wrong places.
Okay.
Because I started it with number 1, I went instead of, I think, Faridabad, instead of that, I landed up at Agra.
Acha. And
So, Air
this
Quarters,
was which department of the Air Force, sir?
administrative branch.
Completely. Okay. Okay.
So when I landed up in Agra,
Mm-hmm.
I realized I was in the place where the Paratroopers Training School is.
Acha. Okay.
Then there was a squadron leader, Mitter. He was the station adjutant. Very nice, fine old gentleman. So it so happened they detailed me for a fighter controller course.
Fighter controller, acha.
Yeah, now that course when I was detailed,
you're gonna fighter jets.
Yes. You know, guiding the fighters.
Acha, acha.
So I was within 2-3 months of my becoming a officer and landing up. I was detailed for this course, and I had also applied for a PGI course, which was happening in Agra itself at PTS.
PGI. What is
that? That is Parachute Jump Instructor.
Acha. So you have to learn jumping itself, sir.
Oh yes, I had never jumped in my life. So it's a full course. It's for about 6 months.
6 months, acha. So you have to learn how to do the entire parajump.
Yeah, various. You learn how you do some 21 odd jumps day and night. You do earlier days. I mean, the first few months are just rigorous fitness training.
Acha.
Gymnastics, parade, PT, running, all that carries on.
Just like make the you army, tough. I would say.
Yeah, I mean, it toughens you up. And then you do the para course.
Acha. Now, another question, sir. At that time, in your time, I think it's the early 1960s, right, sir?
Yeah.
So you're flying officer or flight lieutenant, sir, at that time?
You join as a pilot officer.
Pilot officer.
The rank structure in Air Force, you start with pilot officer, move up to flying officer, then flight lieutenant, then squadron leader. Like that, you keep progressing.
Okay.
So I was a pilot officer. Anyway, I did my course. I became a PGI.
So at that time, sir, which aircrafts were being used for these para jumps trainings?
Dakotas.
Okay.
Dakotas were being used for paratrooping at Agra. And also at Agra, by then the packets had come in. C-119. But they were not with us. They were with different squadrons. Transport squadrons. PTS, that is the Para Training School, had Dakotas. So, course kar diya, and then, started jumping and all that. So I got very, very interested in this career. So when it came to, permanent commission, they asked me, would you like to be a permanent commission chap? I said, fine, if so long as I was doing this. And very luckily at PTS. So I continued in the same work, that is the Parachute Jump Instructor's work at PTS after my permanent commission. And those days there were not very many people applying for this course because it is a voluntary course.
And mostly I've heard that paratroopers do this. From the Air Force, I think almost nobody does.
No, Air Force doesn't have paratroopers other than medical or something.
Okay.
A paratrooper is a person who jumps from the airplane and gets his wing.
So he wears it on his... Another thing, sir, this, I mean, as you have been sort of, what I can say, one of the earliest people to be in the PTS, I mean, how did it actually come up for the Indian Armed Forces to incorporate the PTS?
See, I'll tell you, as I was telling you in the morning, we follow the British pattern. And when, after partition, this training school of PTS was actually in Chakla, a place which is now in Pakistan. It started there, and the earlier PGIs and paratroopers from the army were trained in Chakla. Then after partition, the unit moved and it came finally and settled down at Agra. The same PTS which was there came to Agra. And there were officers, including one squadron leader, Gopalan, who was the chief instructor. He came from Chakla. And with him came other PGIs and set up the school at Agra. So it was at Agra since a while. When I went there in 57, 58.
Mm-hmm.
It was already there for about 10 years.
Acha, acha, acha. Already 10
Eight,
years.
nine, 9, yeah, already there.
Mm-hmm.
So there were other PGIs, they were senior to me who had been trained. There was one, CI was once called the Bahadur.
Acha,
Then we had senior chaps like Bishnoi, Bajpai, Chaturvedi. Like that, people kept coming. But
acha.
there were few and far between. And I was lucky that, well, nobody was volunteering. I stayed there. I liked the job.
Mm-hmm.
Then I was asked to go on high altitude or advanced para course to Russia.
To which place, sir?
Russia,
Russia,
USSR.
Russia. Acha, USSR at that time.
Yeah,
Acha, acha.
USSR.
Mm-hmm.
And that is to do the advanced training on AN-12s.
AN-12,
Because
acha.
they wanted to introduce, more and more different varieties of aeroplanes.
Mm-hmm.
So I was asked to sign a bond that I will not leave para duties after the course for a period of 5 years.
Acha.
I willingly signed. मेरा गया था. I love the job.
Mm-hmm.
So I even asked, can I sign for 10 years? So they said, you don't have to be smart. You just sign what's asked for. I said, okay. So I stayed on.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, the packets came in, AN-12s. Meanwhile, different aeroplanes were tried out, like Caribou, etc.
Mm-hmm.
And life carried on.
So, what was your role actually in training these young paratroopers who are coming in, sir?
See, when a person comes to you, he is raw.
Mm-hmm.
He is probably never sat in an aeroplane.
Acha, acha.
So the course was designed
Mm-hmm.
for a certain period of time. I think it was 21 days or something,
Mm-hmm.
where a person from the army,
Mm-hmm.
naturally it would be the troops or army troops, they would come to you
Mm-hmm.
and you would train them in the art of doing a jump.
Acha.
The course used to be first week or so was nothing else but ground training.
Mm-hmm.
We had a training hangar
Mm-hmm.
which replicated the three stages of parachuting.
Acha.
That is your exit,
Mm-hmm.
how to leave the aeroplane,
Mm-hmm.
flight, how to control the parachute in the air,
Mm-hmm.
and landing, which is obvious.
Okay.
So these three basic things were taught to these people in the first stage of about 8 or 10 days.
Mm-hmm.
And they used to do a lot of training in the hangar. The hangar was a big thing with all this, kind of equipment designed to do all these things. Swing trainer and landing trainer. We used to all have these choir mats laid out so the chap would land on that and do his role and whatever he has to do.
Mm-hmm.
Safe landing, safe flight, safe exit. That is the basic idea.
Okay.
Then he would be taken up in the air for an air experience
Mm-hmm.
because some of them had never sat in an aeroplane earlier.
Mm-hmm.
So they would just fly and he used to bring them up to the door, open door of from which he was to jump later.
Mm-hmm.
And just let him get a feel of the air. He used to be naturally strapped up properly,
Right.
but no parachute, just a monkey belt we used to call it.
Mm-hmm.
It's around the waist and you can't fall out of the door
Mm-hmm.
if that is hooked to a ground point in the aeroplane.
Mm-hmm.
And he is brought to the door, he is told, ke haath bahar karo. Then he feels the air pressure.
Mm-hmm.
He looks at the ground, things like that carried on.
Mm-hmm.
So he has an air experience, we used to call it.
Acha.
After that, he
The
used to
same
do
way,
his
sir,
work.
you were also trained, right, sir?
Yes, exactly.
Yes, yes.
We were also, but our training was much more intense. It was, as I said, for a few months, 6 months odd,
Mm-hmm.
out of which the first 3 or 4 months was nothing else except being back, doing running in the morning, PT, parade, gymnastics, pata nahi kya kya karate the. So they toughen you up. It's called a toughening course.
Mm-hmm.
And then because you will be bashed around in paratrooping.
Mm-hmm.
You land at different places. If the wind speed is high, it will drag you. And those days we used to start our jumps with a British X-type parachute.
Acha.
It was a World War parachute,
Mm-hmm. World War II, I guess.
which was 28 feet in diameter,
Acha.
as compared to the packet T10, which is 35 feet in diameter.
Acha, acha.
So you came down much faster.
Mm-hmm.
A smaller parachute. It used to oscillate a lot, and to cap everything, we jumped without a reserve parachute.
Without a reserve parachute.
Yes, sir.
Why, sir?
Now it's a question of why I can't say. Although now when I think of it, I cannot imagine
Yeah.
that I used to jump from the Dakota with no reserve parachute. Not only me, the troops, other PGIs, everybody. Because the reserve parachute was introduced later.
अच्छा अच्छा. Now it's
And
unthinkable, to be honest.
exactly, मैंने कहा I shudder to think even today कि करते कैसे थे? How did we do it? But then everyone was jumping, everyone was doing things. But I confess one thing, that our safety equipment worker, the man who packs parachutes,
Mm-hmm.
they were absolutely super people.
They had to be,
I,
of course.
yes, yeah, yes. And yes, we had the odd fatal accident. We had the odd malfunctioning parachutes.
Mm-hmm.
After all, I was in PTS from when I joined in 57,
Mm-hmm.
58, I came there. I left it only in 71.
अच्छा अच्छा.
And then immediately within a year because I'll move on to the next thing like this only.
Mm-hmm.
I left PTS because after 71 ops, we'll come to it how I landed up in 71 ops.
Mm-hmm.
After 71 ops, I was told that enough is enough. You have been far too long in this one unit.
Mm-hmm.
You have been posted to Allahabad
अच्छा.
as an admin officer because my basic branch was admin.
Mm-hmm.
So there, my wife's brother-in-law
Mm-hmm.
was one group captain, Basak. He was a fighter chap. He was flying hunters.
अच्छा अच्छा.
He was in air quarters and he rang me up. He told me, Mino, तुम्हारा posting होने वाला है.
Mm-hmm.
So where would you like to go? I said, sir, anywhere you tell me, I'll go.
Mm-hmm.
He said, no, I'm giving you a chance, sir. So I said, I'll ask Bulbul. My pet name of my wife, Pratima, is Bulbul. Everyone calls her Bulbul auntie in school and things. Whatever, that is it. So he said, you ask her and tell me.
Mm-hmm.
So I asked her. I said, bhai, jana hai ab chhod ke. We thought that we live and die in Agra.
Mm-hmm.
So he says, chalo, anywhere, wherever, anyway. I told her, Allahabad, she said, fine. So I told him and I landed up in Allahabad.
अच्छा.
But within, I think, about 6 months or 8 months of my posting there,
Mm-hmm.
I was posted to do the long management course at Hyderabad.
अच्छा.
Now that's a bit of a prestigious course and this, that, and the other. So I said, "ठीक है." They sent me books that I should read up before coming. All sorts of things were happening. When I get a signal from my Allahabad, incidentally, is also Central Air Command.
Mm-hmm.
And Central Air Command, Paratroopers Training School comes under Central Air Command.
Okay.
So they rang up from there to the unit, my unit,
Mm-hmm.
and said, "Bhai, Air Headquarters has sent a very funny signal saying that General Gill,
Mm-hmm.
Inder Singh Gill, who was a military
Inder Singh Gill.
operations
अच्छा अच्छा
man,
अच्छा. He's also a paratrooper.
yeah, he was
World
my
War II.
brigade commander.
Mm-hmm.
He is my mentor. He is, I think he was the finest officer I ever knew.
And he was
Anyway,
in
that
the
was
planning part of 71 ops, I
no,
guess.
no, 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 no. He was military ops
Military ops.
in 71.
Hmm.
So the signal said that he had asked for me
Mm-hmm.
to be posted to the R&D organization at Agra.
R&D. अच्छा.
That is ADR&D, Aerial Delivery Research and Development Establishment.
Mm-hmm.
ADR&DE.
Mm-hmm.
Because we were making indigenous parachutes, or were planning to make indigenous parachutes.
अच्छा.
And he just said, so Air Headquarters said officer to exercise his option because they had asked me whether they had posted me to do the long defense management course.
अच्छा अच्छा.
So then when he asked for me by name, they respected his thing and they asked me. So I naturally command when I was called and said, "What is this? You get a posting and then you are given an option." So I said, "I don't know, but this is it." So they asked me, the senior chap there, then what should I say? I said, "Sir, obviously I go back to Agra because ABRD is located at Agra." So he said, "Are you silly, young man? You are leaving a course which gives you a future in standing in life and all that. Long defense management course, Palana Dingana." I said, "Sir, who is interested in that? I would like to do parachuting." So he said, "Anyway, you're a silly chap. Go." I landed up back in Agra. In 72, 71 I left. 72 I was back. Less than a year. I stayed in that place for a while. So my career started that way. But there was a course under training, and we had instructor would pick up about 8 or 9 Jawans and officers who were untrained, had come for the basic para course, and he would be the actual man who's training them. Then there will be a course which has, say, about 50 chaps or 100 people or whatever the number. We broke that down into, say, 5 sections. So, so one officer, because we were 102 senior NCOs who were PGIs, other ranks, and we were only 8 officers, including the chief instructor. So one officer would look after a course totally, and the other ranks would take on the actual training of those people. So during one such course, I was a course in charge of a particular basic course. I've told you it's lasts 21 days and they start their jumps and all that. So in one particular jump, when they were doing the first jump, this particular course, I said, "Chalo, hum bhi chalte hain, and I'll just see how these fellows exit the aeroplane." Because you have to start from there. Training we had seen on the ground. So when we landed up in that aeroplane, it was a packet. There were these boys, and I decided I'll jump at the last person in the last stick. Stick is the number of people jumping one behind the other from one door. So that's the composition of the aeroplane when you go for paratrooping training. Or even exercise draws, but exercise would be they'll jump one after the other, the whole lot would exit. But in training, you drop them in sticks of 7, 8, lesser numbers. So you had better control, you better observation. So whatever it is, I was sitting at the back and I found that these fellows were jumping one after the other, and I was observing how they went out and all. I was quite satisfied with the progress being made. But after one stick had jumped out, I found that the other stick was not getting. If 10 people have jumped, the rest of the 30 people in the airplane are sitting. They have to be made to stand, their parachutes are checked, preparing for their jump.
Looks like a static line, I would say.
A static line. But when one lot of chaps had jumped, I found nothing is happening. So then I asked the instructor, the dispatcher, who was a PGI. Dispatchers will always be PGIs. Those who get the chaps out of the airplane. So they told me, "Sir, ये अगले हवाई जहाज में hang up हो गया है." I said, "Bloody hell, yaar." So I moved from my position because I had called one of the dispatchers right at the back of the, or rather aft of the aeroplane, near the cockpit, those seats. So he came and told me that ऐसा ऐसा हुआ है. I said, "Okay, you hang on, I'm going up into the cockpit." So when I went into the cockpit, I asked the captain, who happened to be a boy called Flight Lieutenant Mukherjee. So I asked him, "Mukho, what's happened?" So he says, "Sir, take a headphone." So I put on a headphone set and listened in to what was going on. Now apparently the hang-up had occurred and this boy had been hanging. How he was hanging, from what he was hanging, you can't say, because you can't make out all these things. It's following another aeroplane at that height. So I just requested Mukho. I said, Mukho, can I use the RT? He says, most certainly, go ahead, sir. And he says, "Okay, I told him, you just fly as close as you can go and above this aeroplane by about 100 odd feet. And the rest I leave to you. I just want to see as close as possible."
Acha.
Very nice of him. I on the RT, I transmitted, because at the dropping zone you are constant touch with other pilots dropping zone के ऊपर, and you're used to using the RT. So I just called up and said, I asked the other aeroplane which had a hang up ahead of us. I said that, look, what is the problem? Why isn't he not being? We have a release gear. The release gear is carried inside the aeroplane. Is nothing else but two chest-type parachutes with a bit of rope, which is tied to, there's a method. And then the cable is cut on which the paratrooper is hanging. From inside the aeroplane, all the static lines are on one cable. So when you cut that cable, everything will be pulled out, including these two chest-type parachutes. They will deploy and he will come down safely.
Okay.
So it's called the release gear. So I asked him, why has the release gear not been operated? Because it was about 6-7 minutes by then. So he says that, no, there is some talk between the DZ, the dropping zone, and the aeroplane he was flying, that what height should he be dropped? Because we generally climb a little bit and then drop the paratrooper, because these two parachutes need more, in case something happens, so they require more air. So you increase the height from your normal drop height of 1200 feet AGL, which is standard for a packet, to about 2000 feet, let's say, as an example. So I told him, I said that, look, you just drop him now on whatever height you are in the next run. So that person I was talking to happened to be my commanding officer.
Acha.
I didn't know that. I didn't know that he is flying.
Acha.
So he says that, how can you decide what? I said, I am now not deciding. I am saying you will do it. He said, this is so-and-so speaking. I said, so what? I had to, because by then I didn't know ho kya raha hai. Why is this, little something about height? When you're already at 1200 or another 800 feet, if you are or are not, is not important. What is important is this man must be released. So he said, okay, you are responsible.
The paratrooper might have been in shock because of the air and everything. So
very obviously there is something happening which we don't know. So anyway, I thought that I was a flight lieutenant at that. No, what was I? Yeah, I was a flight lieutenant at that time. So I said that, theek hai, I'll take whatever flak comes, I'm willing. But I was also the instructor for the course. And knowing what can happen, I said, this is not on yaar, isko release gear to chalana hi padega. Anyway, I asked Mukho, requested him, just keep flying behind this aeroplane. And we flew over the dropping zone. But even then, the release gear was not operated.
Acha.
In the sense, if it was operated, two chest-type parachutes should have opened. The white-colored ones, they are chest-type parachutes, smaller, reserve. But I just said, okay. But whilst we were just following this aeroplane, after about a minute or 2 minutes, I can't remember how much time, but I saw the normal parachute opening, the T10,
Acha.
which this boy was obviously wearing. So I said, bloody hell, yaar, whatever was holding him up has now on its own come away. What has come away, what is broken, what has happened, one can't say at that time. But I told Mukho, because he had landed well outside the DZ in some rocky area near some fields, he would have come down. So I told Mukho, mere ko yahi, you let me jump here. He said, how can you jump anywhere? I said, because he is my trooper. and he needs somebody on the ground to be with him. I don't know, as you use the word, what is traumatizing him? I have no idea what's going on. Please, Mukho, because I can't order the captain. And Mukho was such a sweetheart. He said, okay, sir. He was junior to me. He said, okay, I'll drop you.
My
So he turned
goodness.
around, dropped me, and it's such a good drop. I could see this boy's parachute from the air, was now on the ground, spread out, and I landed within, I think, about not even 100 yards from him. I did a landing, immediately ran up to him, and saw that he was lying in his mock venison with only one hand. I mean, from the below the wrist, the other right hand was missing.
Okay.
If you can understand
Yeah.
this portion of the hand, this from here to here, the wrist, obviously he was hanging by the spectacle around his wrist with a wrapped around, and now the pressure was not going on the normal opening because there was a thing held up by his hand. When he finally cut away, when the movement of the aeroplane, he was going around like this, and the speed of the aeroplane and everything happening at the same time. When his wrist severed from his body, the normal action took place and his parachute opened.
Oh my goodness.
So when I landed next to him, he was unconscious, and his hand was every time he would sort of take a breath or breathe, that blood used to come up like a shower. It used to come up from the stump. I didn't know what to do, but I had just read a Reader's Digest article on tourniquets a
Acha.
few days ago, and that came to my mind. Besides, you were trained for first aid. So I said, meanwhile, there were a few villagers who had seen first one parachute, this fellow landing, then other parachute. Very unusual for them because they knew about paratrooping because they had seen hundreds of drops, but they never saw into an area like this parachutes coming down. So they had homed on to this point, and when they saw me sitting with him, his head in my lap, they sat like typical villagers on their haunches about 10 feet away from me in a semicircle and kept asking, क्या करें? साहब क्या करें? I said, तुम अभी करो, DZ किधर? They knew everything. DZ कहाँ है? उस तरफ जाओ और कोई ना कोई आ रहा होगा, उनको बोलो कि इधर आ जाए. Guide them. And meanwhile, I tied a tourniquet to this boy's hand. I could stop the bleeding, and well, by the time I could do anything else, the first chap to come to me over there was another PGI called Gomez. मैं बता रहा था ना आपको about at that time. Gomez is such a fine officer. He was at the dropping zone. He had seen these things happening, and he had sort of, pinpointed which side I should run, and he was running towards what he thought would be where we landed. And sure enough, once he saw people and the villagers brought him up, he said, "Sir, kya, Dada, what's happened?" I said, "Yeah, this has happened. Now, where is the medical officer?" He is still some way behind me. I said, "Yeah, you go, somehow you get him. Tell him this has happened. His hand is gone. I have stopped the bleeding, but is there anything I can do? Like give him a morphine injection or something? Agar ho to leta." And then after a few minutes, it took all this was happening. It must have taken, say, I don't know in terms of time, how many minutes, but it couldn't have been more than about 3 or 4 minutes, 5 minutes at best. And then the medical officer came, the rest of the PGIs who had landed up came, one after the other, they kept running. Whoever fitter landed up first. Gomez, the fittest, landed up before anybody. And then, of course, they escorted him out and took him on stretcher. Yeah, जो भी किया होगा.
But his life was
And
saved, right, sir?
yes, he was saved. And how I got the Shaurya Chakra also is a story. I came back to from the dropping zone after all this happened, and I went straight to the crew room where everyone had assembled. The CEO, flight commander, PGIs, other people, they had all were there and waiting for me to hear the story firsthand. So, moment I came in, the first thing that my CEO tells me, I shall not take names or anything. I'll just telling you. He tells me, Vino, do you know you have jumped in the safety lane of the airfield and at a place which you are not supposed to be jumping. So I think that you are going to land up in a lot of trouble. What he hinted was court martial. And what I told him was, I said, sir, I am not bothered about what happened at the other end. I only know that I thought that my responsibility as a parachute jump instructor is towards my troops, not towards rules, regulations, or anything else. And if I had a chance, I'll do the same thing again. Anyway, after I was given the story, there was one officer called Pete Wilson.
Okay.
He is a very venerable figure in the Indian Airforce. I mean, he's senior. At that time, he was a wing commander and he was OC flying.
Could you give the name again, sir?
Peter Wilson.
Group Captain Peter Wilson. He retired as Group Captain, I guess.
Yes, yes. At that time, he was a wing commander.
Acha. Because in 71 ops also he was there, Western Front.
Well, I wouldn't know about that, but so Pete Wilson was one of the, fine officers. Kya bole yaar? That caliber of officers you can't get today. I mean, it's not a off the cuff remark. I do feel that they were really good officers. So Pete, after listening to everything, he tells the whole lot who are assembled. They said, I don't know what you all feel, but I think that Minoo deserves a gong. Gong is medal.
Okay.
So from court martial it became medal because everyone said yes, sir, we agree. Because everyone respected Pete Wilson. And what he said came true. They must have sent the citation, jo bhi kiya hoga, the details of it asked for, I gave them. And I got a Shaurya Chakra. So that is the story of that.